Tuesday night talk. Today I'm very, very glad to receive Yoni Wolf from Why with a question mark. Very important. So I was preparing this interview and I was feeling that there is so much to ask and I didn't know where to start. And I thought that there are two key moments of me and my friends knowing your music and your world. It's with Michael Motet that you made a remix for him very recently. I met him for the first time. It was in 2003, and I just bought Oakland Asylum 1 week ago, and we were completely stunned and amazed. And I remember also the first time I heard for Cloudead, and it was like I was listening music coming from outer space. Incredible. It's like I've been waiting for this, for this mix of hip-hop and experimentation. And my first question would be, could you tell us the story of these years of you guys of Cloudead meeting and starting these projects?
Yeah. Well, I met. Cloudead is three guys. It was me and a guy named Adam Drucker Doswan and a guy named Ad Nostam. And I met Doswan my first year in college. I had seen him in like a rap battle, and then I ran into him at the university, and we started hanging out and making music together. And Ad Nostam had gone to like schools with me all throughout. He went to my elementary school, in junior high and high school. He was my brother's age, a little older, 3 years older. And we sort of ran back into each other at a record store and met there. Maybe my brother ran into him. Anyway, we connected in Cincinnati, the town that I grew up in, and started making music together.
And how did you met with Gel? It was on the West Coast?
No, I met Gel. Gel's from Chicago originally, so I met him through Dose One. In Cincinnati originally. Gel would come down to Cincinnati and work on songs with Dose sometimes, and we met like that.
And how Anticon started with Sole, and you how did you met him and the team?
That was all sort of through like tape trading, like trading like underground hip hop tapes and stuff like that around the country and world to some extent. And everybody kind of met like that.
I have indeed some kind of cheesy question.
What is this?
That's cheese.
And this, what is this?
Cheese also.
And what is this one?
That's cheese.
This one over here, what is it?
Cheese.
What are the artists who you consider who influenced you, not necessarily only musician, but what you were listening to indeed, but maybe some other stuffs?
I guess early days I had a bit of I didn't like rock music that was contemporary. So I really wasn't into like grunge or indie rock or these kinds of musics that were coming out in the 90s. That was like my high school years. But I was very into old, like classic rock, we call it. Like I was super into Bob Dylan and like Paul Simon and Cat Stevens and yeah, so it's like older stuff from the 60s and 70s I was into, and then I was very into hip hop from the time that I was like in high school in those early days. So I was super into De La Soul. That was probably my favorite. And Tribe Called Quest, they were one of my favorites. The Roots, like the first few albums by The Roots. Diggable Planets. The Far Side. A lot of different stuff like that, I guess, were the things that I was super into early on. And then this group called Grave Diggers, which was like a collaboration between Prince Paul and the RZA. The Wu-Tang albums, I guess, stuff like that.
I recently listened to how do you spell it? AOKOHIO? One of the last Y album.
It's like letters, so AOKOHIO.
AOKOHIO. And I was really, it seems that a lot of couple of reviewers or critics didn't understand clearly this album, in my opinion, because there is a lot of very mindful audacity, maybe one of the most experimental stuff you have made so far. And but without empty recklessness or searching experimentation for the sake of experimentation, there is a good mix. And you made a miracle. For the first time in my life, you made me enjoy the sound of barking dogs on Stained Glass Sleeper. This track is fantastic. And as the channel is about sound production and sound engineering, and as always on the launch, you have a very beautiful piano sound, and without maybe giving us all your witchcraft sound engineering, what is the kind of piano you are using? If maybe there is a special type, and is there a special way how you record it?
I mean, since we're on video, I can show you.
Oh, great! Yeah,
that's the piano.
Okay.
And as far as special ways I record it, well, I had a cloth in there, laying over the strings, so to dampen it. And
okay.
I do that most of the time because I like darker, rounder sounding piano. So I had that going on and just recorded it nice and wide, with two small condenser mics as far apart as possible, pointing straight down, so that I got a nice wide field of sound. And then that's it. I mean, and then some I sent it through a Neve simulator, not simulator, but remake EQ.
Okay.
Preamp that I have, which is by a company called Vintech.
Okay.
It's like a Neve remake thing. And then I don't know. Then I put a bunch of plugs on it.
It seems to me also that for the vocals you have a very specific way of treating them sometimes on the side of a stereo from a long time. Can you tell us more about this? This is just the way you feel, or you feel this is more efficient? We were talking about the vocals on the stereo, and suddenly your microphone is shutting down. Except this copy of Neve EQ, which matters to you. Is there a piece of hardware or microphone that is very relevant in your sound chain, the kind of thing that you cannot live without? Not this microphone, but maybe another stuff.
This loss in L7, L47, I guess, because it's a U47, a Neumann U47.
Okay.
Copy.
Okay.
That is my main vocal mic that I use.
My
I would say.
condolences.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's fine. It'll get going again. There's a weird solder joint in there. It's been like that for a while, so it glitches out. But it hasn't done that in like 2 years. So this is the first time you're fortunate to see that on an audio podcast. But other than that, Mike, I use I don't know. Sometimes I'll use just an SM7 for my vocal if I want it to be a little thicker, you know. Um, and in terms of the chain, I'm going into a blue Robbie. That's what I have been using. This guy, if you can see that. I don't know how. It's just a pre, just a strictly a pre, blue Robbie, and then other than that, it's just plugs. You know, I don't really put my vocal through outboard compression or anything like that before I go in. I just put it through that Robbie straight in, and then I mean, you know, I use a lot of plugs.
About the sound, I feel like today with modern DAW, we have so much possibilities that sometimes we don't know where to stop, or we want maybe sometimes to reset things. Don't you miss sometimes the 4 tracks that you found in your dad's synagogue?
Yeah, I do. I still have stuff like that too. If you can see up above my head here. Anyway, they're up high on the shelf there. But yeah, I have a couple of analog just cassette 8 tracks, and then I have a Tascam 388 quarter-inch 8 track right here. So I still here. I'll show you again that thing there. Yeah, so it's that's a quarter-inch machine, 8 track. So I still use that kind of stuff, and the quarter-inch machine is all over like AOKOHIO. I use that a lot on there. Yeah, I definitely like that stuff. I guess I also like, you know, as much as sometimes I dread the like what you're saying, like the amount of possibility that is just endless, you know, with the digital stuff. Within reason of taste, you know, I feel like it's great because, you know, you really can, you really can squeeze a lot of goodness out of a recording. But you can also squeeze the life out of a recording too. So I think it's just all about the user, you know, and how and your taste and how you use it. But I like to use all kinds of mediums and jam them all together and collect them in the computer, and you know, it's very useful for that. Pro Tools especially is the program I use, which, you know, I have my problems with, I guess, how the company runs things. It kind of sucks sometimes, but it's a great program, you know, and it just is really, I can get really detailed in there and all that. And so, yeah.
And how much for your global sound production do you rely on mastering? You don't do it by yourself, or you work with...
I usually do, no, anything that comes out into the world that I'm like, you know, proud enough to put out into the world and have people hear, I usually have a real mastering engineer deal with, just because, you know, I don't have, like, that takes a very specific kind of gear and a very specific kind of training, in my opinion, to really maximize it and get it as good as it can be. You know, I do like what I call like a mock master on things for reference and stuff like that, or if I'm just doing demos or something, you know, and I have those like isotope plugins that are good for that. But yeah, if I'm doing a real thing, I like to collaborate with a mastering engineer who really knows their shit, you know.
And for example, which studio are you working with?
So on the last album that I just worked on was an album by a band called La 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 La, which I produced and mixed, and we used a mastering engineer called Heba Kadri, who is in New York and is wonderful. So I used Heba Kadri on the last La 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 album. On, I guess, the last few things that I've done for Y, I've used a guy named Pete Lyman, has been my main guy for that. Previous to him, I was working with a guy named Johnny Horesco, who's fantastic. All these people are fantastic, and just like, it's interesting, you say, how much do you rely on mastering? And like, I really feel like ideally I rely on it a lot. I prefer old school style of mixing really quietly and with dynamics, and allowing, like, letting the mastering engineer deal with making it sound big and loud and all that on their end. I know to get it as loud as possible, sometimes I will put stuff on the mix bus to squash it a bit on my end so that I'm not so precious about the dynamics, because I've had trouble with mastering engineers, and some of them have stopped working with me because I'm so particular about what I want. So, I'm trying to get into the new world of mixing loud, which is what people seem to do now. But yeah, I guess traditionally I've tended to rely on the mastering engineer more.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, but yeah, from the beginning to now, there is a special type of flavor and in your sound that you can recognize immediately that this is Yoni Wolf producing, in my opinion. And but the healthy thing, apparently, according to many mastering sound engineer, is that the loudness war has ended because of a streaming platform. So if you don't want to mix too loud now, the world is ready for you.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, there's still, I still like to have my stuff loud enough that I guess, yeah, for what application, I still release vinyl and CDs, I guess, to some extent. So I don't know. I want it to feel like ballsy but yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, the streaming platforms level everything pretty much, and if you go over a certain volume, they'll attenuate you or whatever. They'll take it down a little bit. So I'm sure there. If you were to have a discussion with a bunch of mastering engineers, they would say, okay, well, here's the ideal level that you want it right now, so that it still has dynamics, and the streaming platforms bring it up a notch instead of coming down. But I don't know what that is. I leave that to the mastering engineers.
About the the lyrics, the content of your music, and I have a more personal question, and tell me if it's okay. You have, for example, artists like John Zorn, who felt the need to made a specific collection on his label about what he called radical Jewish culture. And I was wondering how far you consider that the Jewish culture you are coming from as having an influence on your music and your lyrics and even your podcast, maybe. Because I feel like you have a special sense of irony, of, I don't know how to define some absurdity. Or, for example, in the video of Bitter Thoughts, you have this irony about, I think, psychotherapy when you are lying on the couch and maybe, I don't know, well, this is what I understood and what I felt. And so I was curious to know how far you consider that this background may have influenced what you're doing right now.
Interesting question. I like it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I, I'm I am Jewish, and I come from uh, a kind of a different kind of Jewish culture within Messianic Judaism, which is sort of a marriage between Christianity and Judaism, like evangelical Christianity and Judaism. But I'm very integrated into sort of modern American culture, I guess. So I don't know. Yeah, but there's something there. There's something there, definitely. But I can't put my finger on it exactly. It's hard to tease out.
Yeah, it's the closest artist I would you seem to have also a very special relationship with your brother. On your last album there is this track, very weird, when you get into the cab, this and you make me feel sometimes to Coen brothers, but they are cinematographers. There is a sense also of tragedy and making the most melancholic things creative, something also about this, to trying to cheat tragedy. Yeah, I don't know if I explained well what
Yeah, you did. Well, I think it's about dark humor, I guess, is something that we do as humans, as a way to accept difficult things. We because in this life, there are definitely going to be difficult things. There's definitely trauma and tragedy, as you say. But we don't have to. We don't have to just live in the muck and the mire, and be straight dark all the time. It's nice to have a sense of humor about things, and as Bob Dylan put it, it's life and life only, and I like to think like that, I guess, and I not to mislead you, I definitely have my times where I have trouble getting out of bed, you know what I mean, and it's just really difficult, but I think that it's important to see the humor in everything, and not just, I'm not a comedian, but to sort of see things from a different angle, and yeah, to create from destruction in a way,
For example, also on your YouTube channel, there is an old video where you are speaking about fundraising for Japan, and now I feel I done my good action. There is it's really funny. You have some kind of stand up, very spontaneous. It's
Well, thank you. I value that humor, and sometimes it just comes out naturally, or just and my type of humor is not like laugh out loud humor. It's more just kind of weird.
I get it. Yeah. So you usually you are on the other side of a desk, or you with your podcast, The Wandering Wolf, and there are now a bunch of episodes. And why did you feel the need to start this project? Because it's quite experimental also, in the way you edit this podcast.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I like doing this. I like talking to people, and learning about them, and I always feel like when I interview someone, I take something away, that I can sort of use in my own life. I just hearing how other people live and what they do, affects me, and I can I get something out of that. And so maybe that's why. I don't know. I work on sort of impulse a lot of times. It's like, oh, I want to do that. Let's try that one. So yeah, I just started doing it after I started listening to podcasts. I was like, maybe I should try that. And I did, and I just kind of kept going, and I haven't done it since the pandemic started, but I as soon as I'm able to travel and stuff, I want to get back to it. I like to do mine in person. I don't know. This feels good, to be honest. I could do it on Zoom or something, but I don't know, the wandering wolf. It's about me wandering around, meeting people in different places in their environment. I like that. I like being in their environment if possible, and sort of seeing what they see.
Yeah, so it's very intuitive. It's like some sort of improvisation in catching something about people with your Zoom and precisely, I was amazed of how various about the topics you speak about with the people you meet, and there is about religion, about discrimination, about a bunch of topics, and precisely this is what I would like to do with you. It's for the last years, I feel it's really necessary that on both sides of the sea we exchange point of view, because the first question in that field that I would like to ask you is regarding what happened inside the capital at the beginning of the year. Do you guys feel safe, or it's terrible, but maybe we things that we don't see because we see things through like this little hole inside the door, and we don't know essential things about all of what happened.
Well, to address something you said earlier in this question, like I feel like in terms of talking to people, if it sticks like strictly to like music, business, I'm a little bit disappointed. I like conversations that veer off and go into some the other aspects of someone's life, because we all live these rich lives and do all kinds of stuff and have all kinds of interests, and why stick strictly to business? So yeah, I feel you there. In terms of the capital and sort of modern radical politics stuff, radical right, republicanism, these kinds of things. Yes, it's scary. To be honest, yes, it's scary. Like anytime I see, which is messed up. It's kind of like, I don't know, like these certain. This is like totally my own thing, and not like I'm not.
It's okay.
Like, yeah, I'm not saying that this is not an objective opinion, or this is just my own feelings. Like when I see like a big pickup truck, with like an American flag on it and stuff like that, like I get a little bit scared. I'm like, is this person going to try to run me off the road? Like, what are we working with here? Like, I don't know. Like, and of course, obviously that's completely like skewed, but that's just my own little fears that come out. And yeah, it's a weird world we live in now, and especially with the pandemic and the fact, and like, anti-vaxxer, anti-masker types, and the fact that they can really just get you sick and kill you. You know what I mean? By being out there and them being sick and not knowing it or knowing it, who knows? And so yeah, it's a weird, messed up world right now for sure. I'm just trying to stay positive, trying to also not judge people, because I can't say, okay, well, this, whatever it is, 48% of this country voted for Donald Trump, like my first instinct is like, oh, well, this whole country is racist and fucked up. And, yes, there is an aspect of that that's true. But also people, people are people, and they get misled through media and bad information, and which is, oftentimes intentional, from the top down, to try to draw people into, these certain political opinions or parties so that someone can have power. And, it happens to me too. I get drawn in by these things on the left, or, and a lot of that is propaganda as well. Like, so, I try not to, I don't watch CNN news, which is like, that's like our left-wing propaganda, like liberal news, and Fox News is like the right-wing propaganda, So to me, all that stuff is kind of worthless entertainment. It's really just like sports. It's like sports essentially, and the Republicans and the Democrats is like it's like the Bengals and the Browns, or so it's all kind of crap, but it's used to draw people in, and so that the people in power stay in power and stay rich.
So yeah, you are absolutely right, and my opinion is Trump is the result of 40 years of society of spectacle, and people who criticize him inside the mainstream politics don't seem to realize that they contributed to create this kind of monster, and you can imagine that in the Baltics, when he says in a speech, "We are producing more oil than USSR formerly." People here are quite humble. They receive this. Who is this guy? What is saying that? But the main thing is, first, indeed, not all Americans are in favor of Trump. We have to keep this in mind in Europe. But also, what I don't understand is what sometimes people are surprised, because there is an interview he gave in February after 1 month where he was in charge with a guy called David Muir, a guy from ABC, when he already said, because he lost the popular vote, he said, yes, there was fraud and so on and so forth. And then 4 years later, some people are surprised when he's saying absolutely the same thing.
With that being said, if you look at voter registration, you look at the dead people that are registered to vote, who vote, you look at people that are registered in 2 states, you look at all of these different things that are happening with registration, you take a look at those registration, you're going to find, and we're going to do an investigation on it.
But 3 to 5 million illegal votes?
Well, we're going to find out, but it could very well be that much. You have people that are registered who are dead, who are illegals, who are in 2 states. You have people registered in 2 states. They're registered in New York and in New Jersey. They vote twice. There are millions of votes, in my opinion. Now,
so it was quite predictable. I only heard Bernie Sanders saying, listen to what he's saying. Listen to what he's saying. You have everything is clear, in fact.
What polls show and what studies have shown is that for whatever reason, Democrats are more likely to use mail-in ballots. Republicans are more likely to walk into polling booths on Election Day. It is likely that the first votes that will be counted will be those people who came in on Election Day, which will be Republican. And here is the fear, and I hope everybody hears that. It could well be, and I don't know what's going to happen, nobody does, but it could well be that at 10 o'clock on election night, Trump is winning in Michigan, he's winning in Pennsylvania, he's winning in Wisconsin, and he gets on the television, he says, "Thank you, Americans, for re-electing me. It's all over. Have a good day." But then the next day and the day following, all of those mail-in ballots start getting counted, and it turns out that Biden has won those states. At which point Trump says, "See, I told you the whole thing was fraudulent. I told you those mail-in ballots were crooked, and I got, we're not going to leave office."
It's
Definitely.
It's this kind of thing, and for people in the Baltics, him getting along with Putin, you imagine the fear. NATO is really a matter of survival here. It's
yeah, I bet. Has Putin made overtures towards Latvia and Lithuania and these the Baltic region? Has he sort of indicated that he might try to take it back?
Since the events that happened into the Ukraine, so the takeover of Crimea, the war in Donbass, where nobody is good on any side, everybody has taken this very seriously. And you know, for Lithuanians, there is this small part of land that is Kaliningrad, between Poland and Lithuania, that is one on the only access Russia has to the sea in the Baltics, because the Baltic Sea freezes very quickly because there is not very much of salt. So this is a very crucial point for them. So no, directly there is no direct threat except from Belarus. Now there are migrants, refugees coming, a vicious politics, and there was this guy, this blogger, who went from Greece to a Belarusian guy who took the plane in Greece and went to Vilnius in Lithuania. The Belarusian Air Force put 2 planes, they took the plane, and the guy was kidnapped in Minsk. So this is no joke, really no joke.
Yeah.
He had the asylum in Lithuania. So there is this is the border of Europe, not only of a country here. It's concerned, yeah. Right. So maybe you heard a couple of stories from your grandfathers from Lithuania, which you said it was from Lithuania?
And Latvia. I'm not sure where he was born and where he lived at times, but yeah, he lived between the two, and came over when he was quite young. He was like 7 or 8 years old, maybe 10. I don't know, but I didn't know him super well. He died when I was fairly young, but I know that, so I don't really know stories, but I know that it was very bad for them there. And because of the Russians,
during the 60s and the 70s, a lot of Jewish people in the Baltics and in Russia used their Jewish origins to go to Israel. It was one of the only way for them to get out of USSR. Yes, and for example, you have Gidon Kremer, who is a famous violin player, amazing violin player. We did a lot of things for music in the Baltics. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have a last question that I call the magic question. What is your earliest memory when you were a child or a teenager linked to music in your recollections?
A lot of memories just flooded in about different. I'll tell two things. One, I have a memory of listening to one Bob Dylan tape when I was about 12 years old and learning to juggle. So I was like homesick from school, and I was teaching myself to juggle and just listening on loop to a Bob Dylan tape. I think it was Another Side of Bob Dylan, over and over, and really being like impressed by the poetics, like, oh my God, this is like poetry, and and perhaps that's what you're picking up on in a way from me in terms of the Jewish humor thing, and a lot of that Bob Dylan stuff has that, and you kind of, maybe I picked up some of that. And then another one is the first time I heard the Tribe Called Quest album called Midnight Marauders. I was listening in these really nice headphones, and I wasn't really into like hip hop music at that time, and that was the first album that really clicked with me. Like, oh shit, like like hip hop music can be really like lush, and prior to that, in the early 90s and 80s, the stuff that was 93, so very early 90s and 80s, the stuff that I was hearing in school and stuff was very, very stark and rhythmic, but without much melody in it. It was like just drum machine drums and a guy rapping like this, that kind of thing, old school rap, and I didn't really respond to that stuff. I was not really into it. It didn't really grab me. But the first time I heard that Midnight Marauders album by A Tribe Called Quest, it just took me there, and I couldn't get enough. And then from then on, I was like, oh, I need to hear more stuff like that.
Okay, that's beautiful. Thank you everyone for watching. Please, if you please smash the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and post this video on social media. It makes a lot of difference for us. Huge thanks for watching, and I will see you on this channel very soon. So this is real sound review, real time.
It's appropriate that this is about sound recording because for some reason my Lawson is not working. So
yeah,
I'm gonna try this short mic.
Like some characters in Bravis Cohen movie says, you need a plan B. It's time for plan B. We need a plan B.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is